So new game is on the scene. Warhammer 40K Darktide has officially launched with some new content. Let's take a look at what that might look like and what we can expect from this FPS game. Why is this important? What's it matter? So Fat Shark's highly anticipated co-op shooter right there, very important distinction note, co-op shooter, has officially released on PC and consoles, and there's a day one update that we'll be taking a look into here. Now, they mentioned Left 4 Dead as a co-op game. That's a huge comparison to make. Left 4 Dead is the father of the co-op shooter genre, at least the modern father, and to really have that as your influence is important. Back 4 Blood said, "We are from the developers of Left 4 Dead," and you can see the reputation, unfortunately, that it's garnered between a lot of the community isn't what it was hoping for. Now, this is going to be more in a fantasy setting, of course, with visceral combat. So we're looking at some melee hand-to-hand, we're looking at some ranged, different things to mix it up, and different styles of enemies to be able to fight, to work off your teammates. That's the most important part of a team game, right? You have to work off the teammates. If everybody does the same thing and it's boring, if it's just single player times 4, it's just not going to be very fun. So let's see, they have a launch trailer they put out and a beta test. It looks like a pretty action-packed game here from this screenshot alone. I can see that the teamwork will matter for sure. And when we look at some of the different elements down here, we'll actually take a look at some of the gameplay footage. And there have been crashes that have reportedly been fixed since, stability problems during the beta that should have a much, hopefully, smoother experience. Ideally it would, at least, because when a game releases and it's just a bunch of crashes, not saying this is, it's not really a great experience. So when we look at the combat loop of the game, how is it going to work? It says it follows a flow. For the most part, players will be dealing with adding enemies that run directly at them, so they can first use ranged weapons to thin the horde before actually engaging with melee. So standard combat flow, right? If they are built to run after you, they're going to be pressure units. That means they're going to be invading your space, trying to distract you from all the other enemies around you. You get focused in on the one guy right here while the other 3 are attacking you. So lots of pressure put on the player in this combat flow, much like a Pinky in Doom Eternal, or much like, say, a Hunter or a Jockey in Left 4 Dead. Something, or a Charger, actually would be a better example. So if you shoot them from a distance, coordinate with your team, say I'm shooting left, I'm shooting center, I'm shooting right, so you can avoid friendly fire, make sure your whole bases are covered. I can see that being pretty good. Then when they get closer, you switch to your melee. Hopefully that's a little more than just that. Now they're going to have different special enemies that have different tactics. Some you're going to have to deal with the distance, or else they're going to make the party members immobile. It's important to have more than just the basic enemy in a game design to be able to spice things up a bit, right? You don't want to just shoot the same guy over and over. You want to have special enemies that make you attack from a distance, make you attack up close, make you use different weapons, all to coordinate with your team. I'm using this weapon for this guy, you're using this one for that guy. So I think that's a good example. They have those from a distance to not render party members immobile. They have mid and long range enemies like snipers that can be shot with ranged or chased down and eliminated in melee. As of the closed beta, the strongest enemy is the Plague Ogren, if I pronounced that correctly, which is a mini-boss that requires all 4 players to focus their firepower, similar to the Left 4 Dead tank, which is good to have those that you don't have to split your efforts on to work as a team, to say, hey, this is the one enemy, we all focus fire, him down. These are the tactics we use. We cover each other from that enemy, treating him as the core focus while others are around us trying to take all of us down as well. Super, super good way to look at it as the combat flow. Now, there's a couple different reviews and things. We're going to look at some footage. This is G-Man Lives. He does some great retro reviews. This really looks like Left 4 Dead. Like, I'll pull up to that. We're going to just take a look at this. Meleeing, all up close Left 4 Dead. Bunches of fire going on. Very action-packed looking. If you like, in-your-face games like this, I'm pretty sure this looks like something you're going to enjoy. There's a stamina meter, maybe to help with the balance. Interestingly enough, lots of melee that he's showing off here. I would like to see some ranged action for sure, which the game says it's going to have it, which is nice, as he talks about the gameplay loop here. This looks like a boss character. Oh, throwables like grenades. Definitely some interesting things to have and to show, to where it's not just left click, shoot the enemy down. Okay, nice. So that's G-Man Lives, if you want to check him out. This is some gameplay from PC Gamer here. You can see that they did use the ranged weapon with the gun, and they had someone else coming in with a melee. This really, really reminds me of Left 4 Dead. That character is freaking huge right there. So they have a goal to reach an extraction point. That's pretty neat too. Maybe there's a holdout that you have to do. I'm not sure. I see the 4-party. It's a 4-player shooter and a boss. There's a lot of neat things that really remind me of the co-op shooter Left 4 Dead. That's why I say, well, if you're going to go that route, you have to make sure you do it right. So when we look at the PC Gamer review here, they say it's a review in progress, praise the combat, progression less so. So it sounds like that they enjoy the combat loop, the range, the melee, the teamwork, but unlike Left 4 Dead, where there isn't a progression element and microtransactions and skins. Not saying this game has that, but just in general, you will run into some issues. So I wonder how they have that balanced out. Now, this says here, when we scroll down a little bit to this section, Darktide's been in the pre-order beta since November 17th, and in playing a character to max rank, I had concerns in terms of progression. There's not really an in-game right now, as the crafting system isn't fully implemented. That sounds like it could be a fix for later on down the road. If you are playing a beta, it's not going to be exactly like it's going to be at the launch. Even with experience and things carrying over, if that would be so, it still's not going to be the same. So having that is in the back of your mind, thinking, hey, I'm playing a beta. It's not going to be the same as a full-on release. That's okay. As I say, with that in mind, I'm also going to max level a character when the game releases from November 30th in order to see how the experience has changed. And then they talk about storytelling and some of the differences there. This is the first game with a live service style story at the launch, and it'll change as the situation unfolds. So it's interesting in that it is live service, meaning here's how the story starts, and over real world time, events will happen and things will change, rather than a static story that is either A to B, B to C. How they implement that remains to be seen, as it's not out in the 3, 6, 9, 12 months later, but doing that could be for some very dynamic and interesting moments. So it looks like they say, as it stands, it feels more like a prologue or a first chapter right now, introducing you to the Hive and the not-so-friendly faces. They love the claustrophobic corridors that open up into vast halls, which having all of these different areas is important. When you're playing a shooter game, you don't just want, and I've had this before and it's not fun, you're in a little tiny box room, and here's another box room that connects to another box room, and that's all you go. There is no dynamic height, low, you're just shooting straight ahead. You don't have to consider what's up there, what's down there, over there. It's all in one area, and it's tiny, so you can't move around and use the game's movement mechanics to your advantage. That's why something like Left 4 Dead, which you have the enemies up high, down low, everything is varied. So I understand, like I said, it's still in its early phases. There's a lot of room that it could go, and one thing it's sorely lacking in right now is a tangible antagonist, or even some inkling about what the heretics are planning. But I guess information is about trust, and the game makes it plain that no one trusts you no matter what you do. It really is a rags-to-rags story in typical 40K fashion. Of course, as the story progresses over time, we're going to see more and more and find out more about where this world is going to go. Now, it says it lets you piece together your own character, creating a backstory of betrayal and heartbreak, fashioning fearsome countenance. So being able to put yourself into that role is a good example, right? We love characters. When I play Left 4 Dead, I enjoy using Ellis. Lovable goof, just a fun character to have. So if I can make my own and have the control in that aspect, that will bring you kind of like closer to your character and the way that you craft them and make them an enjoyable guy or girl or whatever to play. So they go on to say that they're still puzzling out where Darktide stands in regards to the live service elements. The Inquisitor ship, for example, may look stunning, but it's woefully lacking as a social hub for players. Now, as the time goes on, they're going to see things and adapt and upgrade and move to be able to figure out, hey, we need to work on this, we need to work on that. I'm sure over time it will come to be a better experience than it is directly at the first launch, keeping that in mind as this has just been released. Be sure to check out the video on your screen here and subscribe if you like news. I'm Austin. Thank you for watching.